Recording. Well, thank you very much, everybody. My name is Evan Sohn. I am the CEO of Recruiter.com. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this webinar titled "The Biggest Talent." The on-demand recruiting was the top 10 reasons for on-demand recruiting. We're joined by some very, very talented people, three of which actually are part of the Recruiter.com team, and Chad McRae over at Tinder, Match.com, and a bunch of others. So really want to thank everybody for being here today. Little administrative. I always get a lot of questions regarding the deck. We will make the deck available to you after the webinar. The webinar will be recorded, so if you have to leave early, it'll be available. We'll send out a link with all of the information. Miles actually just finished writing an article called "The Top 5 Trends in Talent Acquisition for Recruiting for 21," and this was one of the biggest trends that we're seeing out there now is on-demand recruiting. A little bit real quick about Recruiter.com for those of you who don't know. We're really out to disrupt this giant billion-dollar industry by combining together technology, AI, and video matching and hiring technology, along with the world's largest network of small and independent recruiters. All we care about is recruiting talent faster. I think I say it way too many times a day, but that's what we do. And we put teams together of recruiters in different industries and different segments, and everything from, a small local franchise trying to hire 30 people for their QSR to large multinational corporations looking to hire for talent in a faraway distant land. Those are all sort of projects that we're able to handle inside of our organization. And to really talk a little bit about on-demand recruiting and various different manifestations, I asked Chad McRae to come join. Chad, why don't you tell everyone your background now over at where you are over at Match and Tinder? And we'll get into
no problem. So I joined Tinder back in 2018 to lead up their talent function for Tinder. We went through a centralization model earlier this year, and what we did, we connected and combined all the brands together under one recruiting team. So we have Tinder, Match.com, Plenty of Fish, OkCupid, and Hinge. And I manage the teams over at Tinder and Plenty of Fish in Vancouver, Canada.
Fantastic. And so tell me, why did they go with an on-demand recruiting platform?
I have history with it with a previous company I worked for. So before, I know I talked to you about the story, Evan, but it's one I just really want to bring up. It's with Grindr. So I led the talent function there at Grindr. They were fresh off of $100 million of a partial acquisition of 60% of the organization after 7 years of bootstrapping.
Wow.
So by the time I came in 2017, they already doubled in size. And as a talent leader, whatever I do in organizations, I come in and really assess current state analysis of the organization and really help the organization see around corners to potential future states. And one part of that is actually looking at the recruiting budget. And what really surprised me there is they spent about 1.4 million on contingency spend, which is a large budget for a company that's about 60 people. So when I came in, I wanted to see how I could stretch my budget further and really be able to bring on talent teams, but not commit to full-time headcount.
And has it worked?
Yes. With Grindr, when I look forward after the year and a half there, that $1.4 million dropped down to $58,000 in contingency fees. And I was able to allocate a lot of that savings to on-demand recruiters, employer branding specialists, and also building out a true event strategy over a 2-year period. So it did work, and it allowed me to really understand my budget and really make it more predictable. With contingency model, there's a time and place for it, 100%, but those large lump sums of payments that you do for hires, I was able to get a recruiter for about 3 months worth of full-time work for that same price as one fee.
So, I got to imagine that everyone on the call is saying, but every day you probably were up against someone yelling, going, we should be taking this in-house. We should be taking this in-house. We should be taking this in-house. How do you fight that?
Yeah, so when we look at bringing roles in-house, so we really pull through. So when we look at headcount planning, we do a capacity model. So we look at the throughput through our applicant tracking systems about how many candidates at top of funnel make it to recruiter screen all the way down to hiring manager to offer. Looking at that throughput, you can see what your capacity needs to be. If you have a high capacity that ranges over at least a 12-month period, that's when you hire a full-time recruiter. If you find that a lot of your roles are front-loaded for the year, you don't want a full-time recruiter twiddling their thumbs the last part of the year. You want to be able to make sure that people stay busy throughout the process. So there's a complement between between both. What I liked about the on-demand is I can get a recruiter within a couple of weeks. With a full-time recruiter, just really finding that right fit. It sometimes took me up to 90 days to find a full-time recruiter.
Wow. And so where doesn't it work? So obviously the theme here is, on-demand recruiting. We're going to be talking about why it works and why it's great and all the ROI. When doesn't it work?
Let me think about that. But the main part, what I've noticed is if our hiring managers aren't communicative to the on-demand recruiters, the company's spending money for that subscription fee or monthly or hourly rate. So as long as it's a partnership and the teams really treat it like a true extension to the internal team, that's where it really works. Where it doesn't work is, I would say around if you're a company that shifts priorities quickly. So if you have a recruiter on a data scientist and the next week you're like, okay, let's get you on a marketing director role. That pipeline is going to be a lost cause because you're going to be shifting priorities often.
So you really look at yourself as like a specialist that happens to be at a company that's growing in areas where you specialize, and the people that you bring onto that team are specializing.
100%. Yeah. So what I liked about it as well is I can interview the recruiters that actually join as an extension to my team to make sure that they're right fit. They're ready to eat, live, and breathe the culture and align to the values of the organization and really look for culture adds to our brand.
So you're really, outsourced, insourced, right? You're really an insourced guy. You're really part of that culture that you're working with, as opposed to just some third party.
100%.
That's great. That's really, really good. So we'll hopefully be able to get to some more Chad questions. But I think, Chad, I think you wrote the rest of the top 10 reasons. So that's really great.
I wish.
Really, really good job there. No, I think a lot of it is really part of it. You really set the stage for it. I'm going to try to keep this down about 30 minutes with some Q&A at the end. So we might only get to the first five. So if you want to know the rest five, if you want to know 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, either email me, evan@recruiter.com, or follow up on online, and we'll have all this stuff available for you. So I guess the first question is, in terms of why on-demand recruiting is really addressing this overall question, where did my, talent acquisition team go? We've seen, whenever there's a downturn in the economy, first goes, there's a joke, first goes PR, then goes R&D, and then goes recruiting. Why? Well, you're hiring fewer people, you're going to get rid of a lot of that talent acquisition team go. And I think that's really a real problem. So Miles, are you handling this one?
Yeah, sure, Evan. So my name is Miles Jennings. I'm the founder and COO of Recruiter.com. And by the way, the title for this slide, we don't mean to be tongue-in-cheek. It's been certainly an incredible year to be in recruiting, and we all have friends in recruiting and recruiting tech who have had a difficult year. And it's really been the reality. And although things are recovering right now, it's certainly been a crazy year. What I want to say is it's been very interesting to see how people manage and find homes for their talent acquisition people inside of a downturn. So when we really had the collapse of hiring just in the short term earlier this year, you saw different strategies. And some companies really found different homes for their talent acquisition team in different functions. I remember Uber actually had they developed a Uber directory of people that were being laid off from Uber. And you had a lot of companies that really helped manage people out, like their function changed from managing people into the company to managing people out of the company. And I thought that was a very creative way to kind of manage the hiring cycle downturn. Then, of course, you had a lot of companies that just completely cut talent acquisition as just about the very first team to go, as soon as they saw their hiring pipeline kind of dry up. Now, the reason this is a really top reason for on-demand recruiting is that the companies that made those deep cuts in particular are of course going to find it, so hard to ramp up now that hiring has come back, and it's come back really hard, especially in particular industries and areas. Companies, for example, like Chad's company, Match.com, that I know is just experiencing just incredible growth. So in some of these pocket areas of intense hiring, there's just nobody left to do this hiring. So they're really going to have some issues. I looked it up, just interesting. After 2008, in that recession, kind of what happened after that in the aftermath is that about 60% of companies increased their use of outsourcing, not really because of like an ROI perspective, but just because they literally didn't have the hands to do the work. So I think we're seeing a little bit of that right now start to pick up. I know our company is very busy with our on-demand team. We poll recruiters as well in our Recruiter Index survey. Recruiters are very optimistic, solution providers as well. This is kind of interesting. 30% of them see that their business is the same or better as it was a year ago. And considering what we've all kind of been through with the pandemic and the economy, that's really saying a lot. So companies are basically finding ways to bring on extra resources and get the work done. Next year, they're really going to have to look to third parties and a combination of on-demand recruiting, maybe some contingent, to really supplement their internal staff and get the hiring done, as we ramp up next year.
Hey, thank you so much, Miles. Really, there's a reason you co-founded Recruiter.com, and really, you bring such great insight into what's actually going on. I think that the other top reason, so number 2 now is top 10 reason for on-demand, is really no one knows what the future is going to hold. I think if you had a trend for 2020, it's that who the hell can really predict what's going to happen? Remember my kids asking me during the shutdown, oh, everything will be normal by April. Oh, everything will be normal by May, by June, and now it's, coming up on, I have not been on an airplane since February, pretty crazy. Just no one knows what's going to happen. No one knows what the future is going to hold. And here we are. And as Miles mentioned, we have this, recruiter index where we're trying to figure out what the sentiment is, but you don't know what's going to happen. And in recruiting, we're really about scaling, really about finding the talent for you. So how are you going to do that? Are you going to go out there and hire full-time people? You're going to hire them back? And I think that, the volatility lends itself towards the gig economy. That really is what the volatility really lends itself for. So I can leverage on-demand recruiters. And as Chad might have mentioned, hey, if I have to hire back 50 people over the next 60 days, I don't know whether I'm going to need to hire another 50 30 days later, or 30 days later, or 30 days later. So I don't know what the back part of 21 is going to look like. I know what the front part is. So you know what, since we don't know what the future holds, let's give ourselves the most flexible solution possible. And that's really going to come from an on-demand solution. And by the way, you'd probably say the same thing if you were building out your help desk. Right? You're going to hire, oh my God, we're going to expect this many customers. Maybe yes, maybe not. Do I need more drivers? Maybe yes, maybe not. I'm not going to hire full-time. I'm going to do that in a more flexible fashion. And I think on-demand recruiting really provides that overall flexibility. Our next question really is, again, about being able to scale up and scale down really anywhere in the world. And we've seen the audiences and the talent really shift away. So I asked Gabby to talk about this a little bit. Gabby?
Hi, yeah, I'm the operations manager for on-demand recruiting at Recruiter.com. And really this is speaking to, if there's anything the pandemic has brought us, it's inconsistency with hiring across organizations. With on-demand, you can scale up, you can scale down. As your hiring needs change. So as Chad and Evan were saying, this is a really flexible way for you to add recruiters to your team without adding headcount. And really also the virtual aspect has come to light here with the pandemic. Teams and employees are all remote, onboarding is remote. And so too really has the recruiting function moved to more of a remote aspect. So just as you may be looking to hire talent across the world, as your teams are remote, so too can your recruiting team be based in the remote markets that you're really looking to hire from. So really our team of experts are scalable. They can be found anywhere across the world, anywhere you need us. Whether you're based somewhere else, but you're hiring in Atlanta, we have a recruiter for you for that.
Hey, that's great. Hey, Chad, I'm going to bother you for a second. Are you the headcount that you were filling, right? The talent that you were searching for pre-pandemic were very geographically located to your office, correct?
To the offices globally. So majority being in Los Angeles, but looking at Japan, Europe as well.
And post?
Post, I would say majority still in North America, but with more growth happening across Japan and Southeast Asia.
So when you were adding on-demand recruiters to your platform, was having someone that knew the industry equally or more important than someone that knew the geography? Because the borders we don't have borders anymore for working remotely.
Yeah, I would lean on more just the expertise of the skill set over top of location.
That's really interesting. You know, I used to talk about recruiting looking a lot like the real estate. I want to find a real estate broker who understands the Naples, Florida market, as opposed to someone who understands, you know, the LA condo market. But as borders start to get removed, that really is now going to change around to really more like, you know, lawyers. I need a special lawyer. I need a contract lawyer. Yeah, probably in my time zone, but not necessarily someone, you know, around the corner for me. That very interesting. Gabby, thank you for bringing that. So another question or another need or another, you know, really trend that we're seeing of why on demand is really about stretching recruiting dollars. And, you know, as Chad mentioned before, you were the hero. You took 1.5 million in contingency and turned it to $58,000. You know, it's the opposite of Midas, right? The opposite Midas touch. You make gold disappear and become $58,000. Very interesting. So I think that, you know, it's how do I make things, I think whenever you have a downturn, and Miles, you know, you probably mentioned this before, but whenever you have a downturn in the economy, people learn how to do a lot with less, right? So now that I have recruiting dollars, how does on-demand really make that work? And I'm going to ask Jen to address this question.
Miles actually wants to take this one.
I'll take this one. You know, it's this is sort of
sorry about that. Yeah,
this is in my purview too. At the company, I kind of run our expenses, and if anyone knows, you know, stretching dollars, it's probably me. You know, when we look at recruiting, there's really kind of two schools of thought when we think about our ROI and kind of how to evaluate, you know, this kind of cost. And, you know, one way, and this is RPO companies do this, and, you know, recruiting solution companies, they look at it in terms of the people that they bring on. So for example, in sales recruiting, you bring on a whole successful team of salespeople, and then you look at the ROI from those salespeople and then attribute it back to the recruiting function. That's kind of one way that we look at it. Another way to look at it is time savings. And this is a huge factor. By using on-demand recruiting or RPO, you really are, you know, freeing up hiring managers and HR people to do their productive tasks. So the sales manager isn't recruiting salespeople; they're out there selling and making money for your company. So that's kind of another way to look at ROI. I think probably where we are right now with most companies, it's actually looking at it much more like the structure of the cost itself. And this is something that is really important with on-demand recruiting. Really, its most important aspect is that it's a fixed cost and one that you can terminate or scale up and down, you know, at will. Evan mentioned the gig economy, and right now I think there's this expectation that people have where they, you know, you want your needs to be met when you need them, right? And then you want to be able to turn it off when you don't need it any longer. And it really applies to hiring cycles and recruiting. You know, things are quite volatile right now, and we basically want to incur that expense as we need it and not have to budget in, you know, fixed interminable expenses out into the future. So I think it's a really important structure, especially in very volatile environments like we're in right now.
Yeah, you know, I was on when I did one of the CNBC spots a couple months ago, we talked about, you're going to need, if you furloughed or laid off 500 people, you're going to bring back 300 and you're going to hire another 100 but that's going to look very different. How do you do that, right? You had this talent team of, 5 people, you got rid of 3 of them because you stopped hiring. And now you got to hire the most number of people you've ever hired ever, right? The most number of people that companies are hiring ever. I think last month was the first month we reported on the Recruiter Index, the jobs were actually down from last year. So last year, we did like 266,000 new jobs in November. This year was 245,000. Before that, for the last 7 months, the numbers of people that are being hired were astronomical. And you think about the millions and millions of people that are now out of jobs that are going to be hired, you're going to need a very, very short-term army of people to do that. And I think, Chad, as you were mentioning before, it's not something that you're going to be able to ramp up. Like, let's get someone, let's make the culture fit, let's get them trained, let's get them part of the organization, make them feel good. Let's go, all these other things. We need someone who's actually going to, get people hired as fast as possible. And I think that, those recruiting dollars are better spent building out your army of recruiters, even though they're going to be for this episodic moment in time to fill those seats back up. So I agree. I think it's pretty critical there. So thanks, Miles. And sorry about that, Jen. I got everyone's in their order, and you were next after Gabby. So I figured that's where you would go. Hey, so another trend that we're seeing now in on-demand is, you are not hiring an individual, you're hiring a platform. You're hiring someone that comes, with more tools that they would ordinarily have. So Jen, now you get to speak.
Well, this is a very appropriate trend for me to talk about. I'm Jennifer Goodfriend. I'm the VP of Platforms at Recruiter.com. Essentially, when you hire an on-demand recruiter, you should expect them to come just fully armed, right? And what we're not talking about is they have a laptop and they're ready to go. We're really talking about their tech stack. And you'll find that they'll be versed in their tech stack, but whether they come with their tech stack will vary from company to company. And if it's included in their hourly price or if there is some additional cost for them to bring on that technology. What can be really neat about having an on-demand recruiter is that sometimes the tech stack they bring with them is actually the technology that you at your company would love to have your entire talent acquisition team armed with, but it's just too costly to do so. I'll just give you an example. At Recruiter.com, our on-demand recruiters have LinkedIn Recruiter. We have AI matching with a candidate database of 500 million candidates. And of course, they also get Recruiter.com video, which is really special in terms of saving time in the remote screening process, but also honing in on those personality and culture fit nuances that Chad was referring to earlier. I guess net, you just need to make sure you're asking these questions. If you're hiring an on-demand recruiter, is technology included? And if so, what is that technology?
That's great. Hey, I'm going to keep borrowing Chad. So Chad, I'm really fascinated because, here you have a company, you've been with them for a long time. Like is that part of why they like you and they like your people, is that they're coming armed?
Yes, like when I think of tools, it's usually an annual subscription fee. And if I only need an on-demand or a recruiter for 6 months, why would I want to pay a year subscription on a product I'll only use for 6 months?
Oh, got it. So let's go back. If you're being used episodically at a project, why would I want to spend, 9,000 whatever fees on LinkedIn if I only need it for 90 days, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. That really makes a lot of sense. And then, I think, what Jen was saying, like the AI tools that we've seen out there could also run expensive annual licenses. So arming an on-demand recruiter with an entire tech stack that really provides them being able to recruit talent faster for their customers. So, going back, does your company, Chad, view you as someone who is better than someone who, if you were replaced by someone else, they view you and your team as someone who's better? They're getting better.
When the team joins Match Group, I find that they get up to speed quicker. They're an extension to the team. They understand the culture. It's not the agency account management type of relationship.
Right.
It's somebody that's really part of the team, really understands the culture, really understands what we're looking for diversity pipeline as well to make some change for 2021. So that's what I really enjoy about it.
Very nice. Well, look, we're at the bottom of the hour, and I always promise to keep people for about 30 minutes. I've done these, and you start losing people at around 33 minutes. So there are a few questions that came up, and let's try to go after these. And I'll read the question, and we could I'll figure out live who does it. I got a bunch of, can you send me out the deck? Yes, I'll send you out the deck. No problem. So, hey, how do you compete with tech giants like Facebook, Amazon, Google, and Twitter? They're in a far better in paying and attracting talent, blah, 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 blah. And of course, brand and all these other things. Like, why would any of them, use your service? Miles, you want this one?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. It's certainly very challenging. And, you have, for example, if a company like Google is paying a software engineer $220,000 base salary, and you're trying to compete for that same talent, it's extremely challenging. I would say that probably in that instance of like very competitive, high demand talent, the recruiter matters more than ever. And that's a time to really bring in a specialist who can really sell the employment brand, all the ancillary benefits of the company, if there are equity issues, kind of the growth story of the company, and just the person doing the recruiting becomes so much more important.
Yeah, and I would add, just from our experience at recruiter.com, there are different levels of service being provided by the on-demand recruiter. There's the whole 9 yards, where it's from sourcing to client interview and actually hiring them. There's just the sourcing side. There's just the hiring side. There's the strategy side. There's figuring out what's going to work best for that company. And, we're seeing even those companies using contract recruiters, so that word contract recruiter, I saw a bunch of people on the participants are contract recruiters. It's a very obvious, hey, you got laid off or you're changing careers, and hey, I'm going to be an on-demand recruiter for my clients and be able to service them in a variety of things. And so I got to imagine you're seeing that now happen with even brand name companies too. Before the pandemic, there was the greatest talent shortage ever. Before the pandemic. And now, by the way, that's going to come very quickly, because the IT and software jobs bounce back very quickly. But there are other jobs that haven't bounced back as quickly. And, as Chad said before, if you have a candidate requirement, what was the word you used? You figured out what your placements are for the year. What was the jargon you used? I liked it. You figured out what's your headcount requirement for the year? Was that what it was?
The capacity plan for the year?
That was it, the capacity plan, right? So you figure out your capacity plan, once you have that in mind, then you're going to figure out, how am I going to fill those seats? Because, the most important asset for most companies are people. And at the end of the day here, that's what really you're turning your on-demand team to do, is to find you those people in the fastest way. And, I'll close it out by saying that we get involved in projects where, the last thing they want to do is worry about, they have seats to fill. An open seat at many companies is a crime. If you have an open seat for too long at a company, that's a real crime. That's like having budget that you're not spending. You still have to deliver the results. And what I think we're going to start to see is that companies want to get back to their 2000, pre-pandemic revenue lines, and they want to get their companies growing at that same rate they were growing pre-pandemic. Obviously, we're not talking about the companies that benefited from the pandemic, but to do that, they're going to have to beef up their talent much, much faster. And I think you're going to see a lot of companies move towards an on-demand recruiter in that regard, which is probably why it's one of the top trends that we're seeing for 21. There are more questions, there are more reasons, there are more trends, and we'll send those out as a follow-up to the presentation. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Those of you who are streaming it live on Facebook, I want to thank you. And again, I want to thank Chad for taking time out from, isn't it sad we have to show a photo of our office? We actually can't be in the office. We have to show a photo of what our office, this is what it looked like.
The Christmas tree's right there. Yeah, we're all ready for the holidays.
Already, right. This was last year's photo. Fantastic. Well, Chad, thanks again for joining us, and looking forward to many more successful engagements with you. And again, Miles, Gabby, and Jen, always a pleasure to have you guys here. So thanks again, everybody.